The lobby of the Azure Crest Hotel shimmered with gold light and the scent of white orchids. Every corner of the grand hall gleamed. Crystal chandeliers, silk ribbons, marble floors polished to a mirror. The place had been reserved entirely for the wedding of the Grants, one of the city's most prominent families. Servants hurried about, adjusting floral arrangements and placing name cards on tables. The air vibrated with excitement. Amelia Grant, the bride-to-be, stood in the center of it all, her silk dress rustling softly as she turned in slow circles. She felt lightheaded, half from happiness, half from disbelief that her dream was about to become real. Tomorrow she would marry Daniel Cross, the man who had swept her off her feet with his confidence, charm, and promises of a shared empire. Her younger sister, Emily, was crouched over a tablet, reviewing the seating chart for what must have been the 10th time. If we move the Harlows closer to the stage, maybe we can avoid another speech about their winery, she muttered. Their mother, radiant in pearls, chatted animatedly with the event designer near the entrance, while their father wandered the hall with a look of deep satisfaction. Everything was perfect. Every petal, every sparkle, every note of the soft piano playing in the background. Amelia took a deep breath. The fragrance of orchids and roses filled her lungs, Daniel's favorite combination. She smiled dreamily, picturing him. Her heart fluttered with the same thrill she had felt the night he proposed under the rain of lanterns in Venice. He's everything I ever wanted, she whispered to herself. Then a voice called her name. It was Claire, her best friend and maid of honor, holding 2 bouquets, one of pure white roses, one blush pink. Which one, Millie? The white looks more classic, but the pink softer, more you. Amelia bit her lip, frowning slightly. Maybe the pink. The white feels a little too simple, doesn't it? Claire laughed, shaking her head. You've spent a fortune making this place look like a fairy tale. It's already perfect. Stop second-guessing yourself, and go find your groom. He's probably bragging to the groomsmen about how lucky he is. Amelia smiled, a flush of warmth rising in her cheeks. Lucky, she thought. Yes, they were both lucky. 2 people in love, about to start forever. For a fleeting moment, she closed her eyes and imagined their life ahead. Laughter in the mornings, shared victories, children running through their garden. Her father's laughter echoed across the room, rich and familiar. Amelia looked around at her family. The people who had loved her fiercely, protected her, given her the world. She felt a quiet gratitude. Everything she was, everything she had, would soon blend into something new. Their life, their story. As the evening sun poured through the tall windows, painting the floor in honeyed light, Amelia walked slowly toward the grand staircase. The future awaited, shining, flawless, and impossibly near. Tomorrow, she thought, smiling to herself, my forever begins. The corridor beyond the ballroom was quiet, dimly lit by the soft glow of sconces. Amelia had slipped away for a moment, wanting to catch her breath before dinner with the wedding party. Her heels clicked faintly against the marble floor as she walked, trailing her fingertips along the cool wall, her mind adrift in thoughts of Daniel. She could still see his smile in her memory, that effortless confidence that had first drawn her in. Daniel Cross. Brilliant, magnetic, the man who'd promised her the kind of love that outlasts storms. Tomorrow he'd be her husband. The thought made her lips curve in a private smile. A murmur caught her attention, low voices coming from the direction of the guest offices near the back of the hall. She almost turned away, but something in the tone sharp conspiratorial made her pause. The door to one of the rooms stood ajar. You wouldn't believe how easy it's been, said a familiar male voice. Daniel's voice. He sounded amused, almost proud. Her father signed off on every transaction himself. 12 million in just 4 months. I didn't think it'd go this smoothly. Amelia froze. Her heart stuttered painfully in her chest. Another voice answered, older, rougher. You're playing with fire, son. If Grant starts asking questions, you'll lose everything. Are you sure he won't notice the missing funds? Daniel gave a low chuckle. Relax, Dad. I told him the money's for a new venture, expansion, investments, all that. The man practically begged me to use it. He thinks I'm his prodigy. And Amelia. His tone softened, dripping with mock affection. All I have to say is, it's for our future, darling. And she glows like it's poetry. The world tilted. Amelia pressed herself against the wall, barely breathing. For a long moment she thought she must have misheard. Daniel loved her, he had to. He'd looked at her with such warmth, such sincerity. This couldn't be what it sounded like. Her fingers trembled as she steadied herself. She took a step back, careful not to let the floor creak. Her pulse roared in her ears, drowning out the rest of their conversation. She caught fragments, business accounts, no suspicion, almost done. Almost done. The words hit her like a slap. She turned, heart hammering, and moved quickly down the hall. The corridor stretched endlessly, each step echoing louder than the last. When she reached the balcony doors, she pushed them open and stumbled into the cool night air. The scent of flowers that had seemed so sweet an hour ago now felt suffocating. The city lights shimmered beyond the terrace, blurred by the tears she didn't even feel falling. No, she told herself. There must be an explanation. Maybe Daniel had been exaggerating, boasting for his father's approval. Maybe she'd misunderstood. She needed facts, not panic. Her hand shook as she pulled out her phone and dialed a familiar number. "Mr. Harris?" she whispered when the voice answered. "I need you to check something for me." Quietly. "Every withdrawal Daniel has made from the family accounts in the past few months. I need to know where the money went." "Of course, Miss Grant," the advisor replied calmly. "I'll call you back within the hour." Amelia lowered the phone and stared into the night. Her reflection glimmered faintly in the glass door. Pale, trembling, frightened. Tomorrow she was supposed to stand in front of hundreds of people and promise Daniel forever. But forever, she realized, might already be broken. The minutes stretched endlessly as Amelia stood on the balcony, her phone clutched in her trembling hands. The night wind played with the sheer fabric of her dress, lifting it gently like a ghost of her fading dreams. Below, the gardens glittered with fairy lights, ready for tomorrow's celebration. Everything was set for happiness, and yet her chest felt hollow, heavy with dread. Her phone finally buzzed. She pressed it to her ear with unsteady fingers. "Miss Grant," came Mr. Harris's measured, professional tone. "I've reviewed the records as you requested." Amelia swallowed hard. "And he's been withdrawing funds systematically, smaller amounts each time, always with signed approvals from your father's office. It looked routine, but the totals are substantial. Roughly $12 million transferred over 4 months. All authorized, yes, but what?" Her voice cracked. "They were moved into shell accounts, short-term holdings, then routed offshore. There's no evidence of any reinvestment into your family's businesses. It appears the money's been consolidated elsewhere." Silence. The kind that feels like the world has stopped turning. "Thank you, Mr. Harris," she whispered at last. "Please don't mention this to anyone." "Not yet." "As you wish, Miss Grant." The line clicked off. For a long time Amelia didn't move. She stood there, her mind blank, until the glow of her phone screen dimmed and the music from the ballroom drifted faintly through the walls. 12 million. The number echoed in her skull like a curse. She wanted to deny it, to erase the sound of Daniel's laughter in that office, to believe he was the man she thought she knew. The man who promised her constellations and forever. But the truth was colder than she'd ever imagined. He hadn't been building a future with her. He'd been stealing it. Amelia pressed her palms to her eyes, forcing back the tears. She would not fall apart, not here, not now. There had to be a reason, she told herself desperately. Maybe Daniel was trapped in something bigger, forced by debt or threat. Maybe he'd explain everything and it would all make sense again. But deep down, she knew the truth didn't need explaining. It had been there all along, hidden behind his polished smile and soft words. Her heart hurt, but beneath the ache something else stirred. A flicker of clarity. If Daniel could lie to her so easily, she needed to know just how deep the deceit went. She straightened, her breath steadying. She wiped her cheeks, smoothed her hair, and turned back toward the hall. The party lights inside gleamed like nothing had changed. Guests laughed, waiters carried trays of champagne, and somewhere her mother's voice rose with laughter. The world still believed in the perfect wedding. Amelia walked among them with a quiet, practiced smile. No one noticed the faint tremor in her hands, or the storm gathering behind her eyes. She would find the rest of the truth. Every secret, every betrayal. And when she did, Daniel Cross would learn that the woman he underestimated was far more dangerous than he ever imagined. The following afternoon unfolded in a haze of sunlight and expensive perfume. The hotel gardens were alive with the chatter of guests and the laughter of bridesmaids rehearsing under the arch of ivory roses. To everyone else, Amelia Grant looked radiant, calm, glowing, and perfectly in love. But beneath her poised exterior, her heart was an open wound. She had slept little. The night had been filled with restless pacing, old memories, and 1,000 unanswered questions. Daniel's betrayal replayed in her mind like a cruel refrain. Yet when morning came, she had dressed carefully, painted on serenity, and stepped into the light as though nothing were wrong. Daniel had sent her a message that morning. "Can't wait to see you tonight, my love. You've made me the happiest man alive." The words had once made her heart flutter. Now they burned. Amelia moved through the garden, pretending to check on the floral arrangements, though her eyes searched for him. She finally spotted Daniel near the far pavilion, the one overlooking the sea, half hidden by blooming wisteria. He wasn't alone. His mother, Evelyn Cross, stood beside him, elegant in a tailored cream suit, her diamond earrings catching the sunlight. Amelia hesitated behind a hedge of white hydrangeas. She knew she shouldn't listen, but instinct, or perhaps the remnants of love turned into suspicion, rooted her in place. "You have to end this soon, Daniel," Evelyn was saying in a sharp whisper. "The Grants are powerful people. If they discover what you've done, they'll destroy you, and me along with you." Daniel laughed softly, that same easy, confident tone he used to charm everyone. "Relax, mother. Tomorrow it's over. Once I sign the marriage contract and secure the trust, everything falls into place." "And her?" Evelyn's voice dropped lower. "The other one?" Amelia's stomach tightened. "The other one?" Daniel glanced toward the sea, his expression darkening. "Marina's not a problem. She understands her place." "She's pregnant, Daniel." Evelyn's words struck the air like a slap. "And when that child is born, she'll want more than promises. You can't keep her hidden forever." For a moment, Daniel was silent. Then he sighed. "Once I get what I need, I'll handle it. Marina knows what's at stake. She won't risk losing me. She's not like Amelia." He smiled faintly. "Amelia believes in fairy tales. She'll never see it coming." The world tilted. Amelia's fingers dug into the hedge, thorns biting into her skin. The pain barely registered. Pregnant. Another woman. Lies stacked upon lies. Her mind screamed, but no sound left her lips. Every detail of their love story, every kiss, every whispered confession, shattered in an instant. He hadn't just betrayed her family. He had mocked her heart. Evelyn's voice softened, almost tender. "Just be careful, my dear. You may be clever, but women have a way of finding out. Don't underestimate her." Daniel smiled. That same charming, devastating smile he had once reserved for Amelia alone. "She won't. By this time tomorrow, I'll be her husband, and everything will be mine. Then we disappear." Amelia turned away, her vision blurring. She walked quickly, blindly, through the maze of flowers until she reached the empty terrace overlooking the cliffs. The sound of the waves crashed below, relentless and cold. Her breath came in shallow gasps. Rage trembled beneath her skin, raw white-hot alive. But there was no space for hysteria, no room for tears. They had taken enough from her. Slowly, she lifted her bloodied fingers to her lips and smiled through the pain. "He thinks I won't see it coming," she thought. "Then he doesn't know me at all." That night, the bridal suite was lit by dozens of flickering candles, their golden reflections trembling across the mirrors. The gown, her dream gown, hung by the window, ivory silk shimmering in the moonlight. 1,000 tiny pearls sewn by hand, a masterpiece of devotion, now nothing more than a symbol of deceit. Amelia sat at the vanity, still wearing the same pale pink dress from the afternoon. Her eyes were red but dry. The tears had come earlier, silently, until there were none left. Now she felt hollow, a fragile shell of calm surrounding something sharp and new that pulsed deep inside her. The phone on the vanity buzzed again. Messages from friends, her mother, her bridesmaids. "Can't wait for tomorrow. You'll be the most beautiful bride in the world. Sleep well, Mrs. Cross to be." Mrs. Cross. The words twisted inside her like a blade. She rose and crossed the room, stopping before the wedding dress. The train cascaded like a river of light. She reached out, touched the fabric, and for a moment her throat tightened. She remembered the day she chose it. Daniel had been there, watching her with adoration. He'd told her she looked like a dream. She almost laughed now. A dream, yes. His favorite illusion. Her reflection in the glass window stared back. Pale, hollow-eyed, but no longer weak. Beneath the grief, something had begun to form: purpose. Precision. Amelia walked to the minibar and poured herself a glass of champagne. The bubbles rose and burst like the last traces of innocence leaving her. She lifted the glass in a mock toast. To forever, she whispered bitterly. And the end of it. Her father's words echoed in her mind. Something he had told her long ago. Back when he was teaching her how to read people, how to negotiate, how to survive in a world full of masks. A clever fish always meets a sharper hook, my girl. Don't ever be afraid to be the hook. She smiled faintly. The lesson had seemed cruel when she was younger. Now it was clarity itself. Daniel thought she was blind. He thought her love had made her soft. But he had forgotten whose daughter she was, and that the Grants never lost quietly. Amelia sat at the writing desk and opened her laptop. The glow of the screen lit her face with a cold bluish light. Her fingers began to move. Messages to her father's legal team, her family's private security. A quiet call to Mr. Harris for documentation of every transfer Daniel had made. Every detail. Every lie. Her plan began to take shape, elegant and simple. A mirror image of Daniel's deception, only sharper. He had built his fortune on false signatures and blind trust. She would use his own greed against him. She would give him exactly what he wanted, one last perfect opportunity. The champagne glass stood forgotten beside her, the bubbles gone flat. Outside, the waves rolled against the cliffs, a low, endless rhythm that matched her pulse. By the time dawn began to silver the horizon, Amelia closed her laptop and exhaled slowly. The first outline of revenge was complete. She rose, touched the wedding gown once more, and this time her expression was calm, almost serene. Tomorrow she would walk down the aisle. She would smile, she would vow, she would kiss. And then, when the curtain fell on her perfect performance, Daniel Cross would finally learn what it meant to betray a Grant. Morning came draped in gold. Sunlight poured through the tall windows of the Azure Crest Hotel, gilding every surface with warmth. The halls buzzed with life, laughter, footsteps, the rustle of satin dresses. Outside, the ocean shimmered beneath a sky so clear it seemed unreal. To the world, it was a perfect wedding day. To Amelia, it was the stage upon which her vengeance would begin. She sat before the mirror as her hair was arranged into a cascade of soft curls. The stylist spoke in cheerful tones about how stunning she looked, how Daniel would surely cry when he saw her. Amelia smiled politely, her reflection calm and angelic. Inside, she felt nothing but steady focus. Every detail of the day had been rehearsed. Her gestures, her words, even the tremble in her smile that would look like joy instead of resolve. When everyone had left the suite, she stood alone before her reflection. The gown fit flawlessly, every pearl, every fold. She looked like the bride she was supposed to be, the woman Daniel believed he had broken. But behind the glass, her eyes told a different story. The door creaked softly. Claire peeked in, her eyes wide with admiration. "You're breathtaking, Millie," she whispered. "This is your day. Are you nervous?" Amelia rose, smoothing her dress. "A little," she said truthfully. "But it feels right." Claire grinned, oblivious. "Then let's get you married." The ceremony took place in the garden under an arch of roses and crystal drapes. A string quartet played softly as guests took their seats. The air smelled of salt and flowers. Daniel stood at the altar, handsome and proud, his smile as polished as ever. He looked like a man who had already won. When Amelia appeared at the end of the aisle, the crowd gasped. She seemed ethereal, glowing, graceful, almost unreal. She walked slowly, each step a heartbeat closer to the moment that would change everything. Daniel's eyes softened when he saw her. He whispered something to his best man, a smug, knowing smile tugging at his lips. Amelia caught it, and for a fleeting second rage flared inside her. But she swallowed it, turned it into something colder: control. The officiant began to speak. Words about love, trust, eternity. Words that sounded hollow now. Amelia repeated her vows in a voice that trembled beautifully on cue. Daniel's hand tightened around hers, and the crowd sighed at the tenderness of it. When he said his vows, he looked at her as though he meant every word. "You are my heart, Amelia. My beginning and my forever." She met his gaze and smiled softly. "My forever ends tonight," she thought. The applause thundered as they kissed. Cameras flashed. Champagne was poured. The music swelled, and the celebration began. Throughout the reception, Amelia moved like a queen among her guests, laughing, dancing, radiant. Daniel couldn't take his eyes off her. If he noticed the faint chill behind her laughter, he didn't care. The performance was flawless. At one point, she caught her father watching her from across the room. His sharp eyes softened with pride. He had no idea of the storm brewing beneath her calm. Later that evening, as the band played their final song, Amelia touched Daniel's arm. "There's someone I'd like you to meet," she said, her tone warm and innocent. "A dear friend of my father's, Robert Kane. He's been interested in your business ventures. I thought tonight might be a good time to introduce you." Daniel's eyes lit up at the mention of business. "You're full of surprises, my love," he said, pressing a kiss to her hand. Amelia smiled, her gaze unflinching. "You have no idea." As the night deepened, laughter and music filled the ballroom, and the guests toasted to love, wealth, and forever. No one saw the quiet exchange of glances between Amelia and Robert Kane. No one noticed the faint glimmer of satisfaction in her eyes. The game had begun, and for the first time the bride was holding all the cards. The morning after the wedding was crisp and bright, the kind of morning meant for beginnings. But for Amelia, it was the quiet before a storm she had already set in motion. The newlyweds had moved into the hotel's private honeymoon suite overlooking the sea. The papers had already splashed their smiling faces across the news. A union of power and love. The Grant Cross wedding of the year. Daniel reveled in it. He moved about the suite humming, taking phone calls, making plans. Always making plans. Amelia played her part perfectly, warm, affectionate, serene. She served breakfast on the terrace, poured his coffee, kissed his cheek, and listened to his boasts about the bright empire they'd build together. Every word made her skin crawl, but her face never betrayed her. Around noon, as Daniel scrolled through congratulatory messages, Amelia placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. "Darling, do you remember Robert Kane from the reception?" she asked casually. "My father's friend." Daniel looked up, interest flickering in his eyes. "Of course. The investor. We didn't get much time to talk, but he seemed influential." "He's very interested in your work," she said, pouring more coffee. "He called this morning. He wants to discuss a potential partnership, something that could double your company's valuation." Daniel's eyebrows lifted. "Double?" Amelia smiled faintly. "He believes your vision could fit perfectly with his network. He's offering an immediate investment, millions, possibly more. He said if you can meet him today, he'll have the documents ready by tomorrow." Daniel leaned back, his grin spreading. "My clever wife," he said. "You've barely been married a day, and already you're opening doors." She smiled. "I just want to see you succeed." Inside, her pulse was steady, her thoughts sharp. The papers Robert carried weren't investment contracts. They were carefully prepared documents, each one tied directly to Daniel's existing accounts, every transaction traceable to the stolen money. All Daniel had to do was sign. His signature would be his confession. By afternoon, Daniel was suited and glowing with anticipation. Amelia kissed him goodbye at the door, her expression tender. "Good luck, love," she whispered. "I'll be waiting." When he left, her smile fell away. The mask slid off, leaving the steel beneath. She crossed to the phone and dialed a private number. "Robert," she said softly. "He's on his way. Make sure every camera is running. The police liaison will have the warrant ready within the hour." "Understood," came Robert's voice. "And you? You'll be all right." Amelia looked out at the sea, vast, endless, untouchable. "I already am." Hours passed in silence. The sun dipped low, painting the waves in crimson and gold. Then her phone vibrated once. A single message. He signed. Amelia closed her eyes. For a long moment, she let the quiet fill her. The man who had played her, deceived her, stripped her family's trust, had just signed his own downfall with the same arrogance that once charmed her. When Daniel returned that evening, he was exuberant. It's done, he said, sweeping her into his arms. We're going to be rich beyond belief, Amelia. Kane was practically begging to partner with me. She smiled and kissed him, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm so proud of you. Later that night, as he slept beside her, Amelia stood by the window, staring at the moonlit water. The waves crashed rhythmically against the cliffs, each one erasing the traces of what once was. Tomorrow, she thought, the tide will take everything he built and leave him with nothing but the truth. The trap had been set, and it had closed perfectly. The next morning broke with the calm precision of inevitability. Amelia woke early, her body still, her mind already racing ahead of the sun. Daniel, confident and unsuspecting, was humming in the shower, preparing for his final meeting with Robert Kane. He looked radiant. Expensive suit, polished shoes, and that air of victory that comes before ruin. Wish me luck, my love, he said, straightening his cufflinks. She leaned in, brushed his cheek with her lips, and murmured, You don't need luck, Daniel. You've already won. He laughed, mistaking her tone for admiration. Then he was gone, the door closing softly behind him, the sound of fate sealing shut. Amelia exhaled slowly, her hands steady as she reached for her phone. He's on his way, she told the head of security. You know what to do. Within an hour, she was in the control room at the top floor of the hotel, a place most guests never knew existed. The walls were lined with monitors, each displaying live feeds from hidden cameras throughout the business complex attached to the hotel. There, said the security chief, pointing to one of the screens. Daniel sat opposite Robert in the private meeting room, his expression full of pride and greed. Robert handed him a sleek folder, the same one Amelia had signed off on the night before. Daniel flipped through the documents, barely skimming them, too eager to notice the fine print. His pen glided across the pages. There it is, whispered Amelia. His confession. On screen, Robert stood, shook Daniel's hand, and smiled with calculated politeness. Congratulations, Mr. Cross, he said. You've just completed the most important transaction of your life. Minutes later, Daniel left the room. He didn't return to the suite. Instead, he headed straight for the garage, where a private car waited. Amelia's eyes followed him on the monitor. He's leaving the property, the guard said. Let him, she replied, her voice calm, almost serene. Follow protocol. As the cameras tracked Daniel's car pulling away, Amelia turned and looked at the ocean through the window. Somewhere deep inside, a small ache pulsed. Not regret, not even sorrow, but the echo of what could have been if things were real. By midday, her phone buzzed. The head of security's voice came through. He's been located. The police are on site. Do you wish to be present, ma'am? Yes, she said, her voice cool and certain. I'll come myself. The drive to the neighboring city felt endless. When her car finally stopped in front of a faded apartment building, Amelia stepped out, dressed in a simple cream suit, elegant but unassuming. She wasn't here as a bride anymore. She was here as a reckoning. At the door, uniformed officers were already in position. The knock was firm. A moment later, a pale young woman with trembling hands opened it. The mistress. Is Daniel Cross here? The officer asked. The girl hesitated, eyes darting toward the back room. He's inside, she whispered. Step aside, miss, said the officer. They entered. Daniel was in the living room, surrounded by open suitcases and neat stacks of cash. His robe was half-tied, his expression first confusion, then horror. His gaze landed on Amelia, standing calmly behind the officers. Amelia, he stammered. What? How did you? She tilted her head slightly. Did you really think you could vanish with my family's fortune and no one would notice? The lead officer stepped forward. Daniel Cross, you are under arrest for large-scale financial fraud and embezzlement. Daniel's hands trembled. Wait. This is a mistake. These were legitimate transfers. Business expenses. Robert's voice echoed from the doorway. He had arrived moments earlier. Legitimate? You signed documents linking every cent directly to your private offshore account. Daniel's face drained of color. No, that's not. Stop lying, Amelia said softly. You've already dug your grave. As the officers began the search, they found the evidence. The forged accounts, the fake company IDs, the plane tickets for him and his mistress to the Caribbean. Every lie laid bare, every secret recorded. When they led him toward the door, he turned to Amelia, his eyes desperate. "You don't understand, I loved you. I was going to tell you everything." She met his gaze with unflinching calm. "You loved what you could take from me. And now you'll lose everything you stole." His last words were drowned out by the sound of handcuffs closing. The young woman sobbed quietly against the wall, whispering apologies no one asked for. Amelia looked at her, not with pity but with strange, measured compassion. "You were just another pawn," she said gently. "Don't waste your life mourning a man like him." Then she turned, stepped out into the bright daylight, and inhaled deeply. The air tasted clean, sharp with salt, alive with freedom. Behind her, the police car's siren wailed. Ahead, the horizon glowed with promise. For the first time in months, Amelia walked away without looking back. The days after Daniel's arrest were a quiet storm. Amelia returned to the family estate, stepping through halls that smelled of polished wood and faint perfume, a place that had always been her sanctuary. The estate had survived her fiancé's deceit intact, thanks to careful planning, but the lessons she had learned made everything feel sharper, more precious. Her father met her in the study, eyes bright with pride. "Amelia," he said, voice steady, "I've watched you handle this, and I can't tell you how proud I am. You've done what most would never have the courage to do. You've protected the family, and yourself." She smiled faintly, settling into the leather chair across from him. "It's over now, Father. The rest is just clean up." Even as the legal and financial proceedings moved quickly, Amelia felt a quiet satisfaction that went beyond justice. Every fraudulent transaction Daniel had made was traced, recovered, and returned. Every paper trail led back to him. His family, implicated as accomplices, faced their own reckoning: conditional sentences, social disgrace, and shattered influence. Amelia sat in the private study with her family's financial advisors, poring over recovered assets and restructuring investments. Her father watched silently as she asked precise, insightful questions, made calculated decisions, and directed the flow of resources with authority. "You've changed," he said finally. "Not just stronger, smarter, different. Wiser. The Amelia I knew as a girl would have cried and despaired. The woman sitting here? She takes control." She nodded, acknowledging the weight of his words. "I had to. There's no other way forward. Not for me, not for the family." Outside, spring had returned in full bloom. The gardens smelled of roses and jasmine, a reminder that life carried on, vibrant and resilient, even after betrayal. Amelia wandered the estate grounds, feeling the steady pulse of wind through her hair. She thought of the wedding gown, once a symbol of innocence and deception, now folded carefully away. She would never wear it again, but she did not burn it. It was a relic, a memory, and a testament to her survival. Weeks later, Amelia attended a high-level business conference alongside her father. Investors, old friends, and emerging entrepreneurs filled the hall. She stood confidently at her father's side, answering questions, offering insight, and forging connections. Her presence commanded respect. Her mind, razor-sharp, left no detail unnoticed. Later that evening, as the estate's evening lights flickered on, Amelia sat on the terrace with a glass of wine. The city sparkled beneath her, distant yet familiar. Her heart was calm. The world no longer held Daniel's shadow. She had reclaimed her life, her fortune, and most importantly, her peace of mind. A message from her sister pinged on her phone. "Dinner tonight? Celebrate finally feeling free." Amelia smiled, typing back, "Absolutely. It's time to enjoy what's ours." The sun dipped below the horizon, and for the first time in months, Amelia felt the weight lift completely. She was no longer the naive bride who had walked down the aisle under a mask of love. She was a woman in command, a master of her fate. The past had tested her, but it had also forged her into someone unbreakable. And for Amelia, the future gleamed brighter than any wedding day ever could. The morning air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of jasmine and sea salt from the gardens below. Amelia stood at the balcony of the family estate, her gaze tracing the horizon where the sun touched the water with gold. This was no longer a day of celebration or deception. It was a day of beginnings. Over the past weeks, she had reorganized the family's ventures, recovered stolen funds, and overseen legal proceedings that had dismantled Daniel's schemes. Each step reaffirmed her confidence. The woman who had once been vulnerable, manipulated, and betrayed now stood as a pillar of strength, unshakable and decisive. Her father approached, a proud smile warming his face. "Amelia," he said, "you've grown into the kind of leader I always hoped you'd become. Not just for the family's sake, but for yourself. You've shown wisdom, courage, and unmatched resolve." She turned to him, her eyes steady. "I've learned the hard way that trust is precious and must be earned, Father. But I also learned that no betrayal can define me unless I let it." Over the next few days, Amelia hosted a series of meetings with investors, family friends, and advisors. Every decision she made reflected her clarity and insight. Strategies were revised, projects accelerated, and the estate's influence expanded. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about mastery, foresight, and building a future unshaken by deceit. One afternoon, as she strolled through the sunlit gardens, her sister joined her with laughter echoing through the roses. "You're different now, Millie," she said, eyes sparkling. "Stronger. More alive. It's inspiring." Amelia smiled softly, brushing a hand across the petals of a blooming rose. "I've realized something important," she said. "Happiness isn't about who we trust blindly, or the illusions we chase. It's about knowing your worth, guarding it, and choosing carefully who walks beside you." Her gaze drifted to the city beyond the estate walls. Lights glimmered faintly in the distance, the hum of life continuing uninterrupted. She had faced betrayal, heartbreak, and deception, and yet here she stood, intact and stronger than ever. Later that evening, she returned to the study, where her father awaited with a folder of new ventures. He handed it to her with a wink. "For you," he said. "Your instincts, your leadership. It's time they guide more than just the family estate." Amelia opened the folder, scanning the proposals, already seeing opportunities and solutions where others would only see risk. She looked up at her father, a confident, radiant smile on her face. "Let's get started," she said. As the night fell and stars began to shimmer over the estate, Amelia felt an overwhelming sense of calm and purpose. She had reclaimed everything Daniel had tried to steal. Her trust, her fortune, and her life. But more importantly, she had claimed herself. This was no longer about surviving. It was about thriving. About shaping the world on her own terms. About writing a story where she was the author, the hero, and the guardian of her own destiny. The horizon glowed with promise. And for the first time in a long while, Amelia felt the future stretch endlessly before her, bright, unbroken, and entirely her own. The past was behind her. The world was hers. And this time, she would never let anyone take it away. Let me know how you liked my story. And be sure to subscribe to our channel. A new story will be posted here tomorrow.